Hi, AB Calculus students. This is 2014 question number 3. This is another FTC question. All right, so the very first thing I'd like to point out is they gave us the graph of f. In these problems, they are always either giving you the graph of f or f prime, or they're giving you the graph of f and it turns out to be the graph of g prime. Some way or another, the graph they give you will end up being the derivative of something. So in this problem, they gave me the graph of f, and you're like, well, that's not a derivative. Take the derivative on both sides before you even start the problem to get more information. If you take the derivative, you now get g prime x, and on the other side, the derivative destroys the antiderivative, and the x jumps in, making it f of x. So they started by telling you this is the graph of f, but now we know f is also called g prime. And again, you make a sign chart of g prime. This is g prime. You make a sign chart of this, and this will tell you when g is increasing, decreasing, maxes, and mins. If you look at the slopes of g prime, you'll make a sign chart of its derivative, g double prime x, and it can tell you when g is concave up, concave down, or points of inflection. It's beautiful. Okay, so we take the derivative on both sides, and if we take the derivative one more time, we get g double prime x equals f prime x. Okay, so with this information, I'm ready to start the question. And we might not use all of this, but they give you this, you just do this. Just do it. Sometimes it's just worth points. And we're ready to roll in this question. Okay, so part A says find g of 3. All right, so I need to find g of 3. And I notice g of 3 is using this equation here. So I'm going to put a 3. If I put a 3 here, I'm going to put a 3 here. So it's integral from -3 to 3, f of t dt. So to find g of 3, I need to find the area from -3 to 3. Something I always check, are these in the right order, small number and big number? Yep, I'm good, but if they were not, I would flip them and put a negative in front. But they're in the right order. So I simply need the order from 3 to -3. Okay. So to find the order from 3 to -3, or -3 to 3, I'm going to start here with this big triangle. And this big triangle has an area, the huge triangle, 1/2 base times height. And the base is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the height is 1, 2, 3, 4. Now remember, we don't need to simplify this. But 1/2 5 times 4, that's the area of that first piece. And then we need the area of this little piece right here. Now you might be wondering, all right, this triangle right here is below the curve, so it's going to count as negative area. It's a triangle, so 1/2 base times height. The base is this distance here, 1. We'll put a 1 there, but we need the height. And look at this graph. This graph starts at a height of 0 and then goes all the way down to 4. So instead of going down 0 over 4, if this is only halfway, it's gone down 2. Down 2 and over 1. So this right here is going to be down at 2. And again, we're just talking height, so that is a height of 2. All right. So I'm done. That's the area of the big triangle, and then the area of the little triangle. And this little triangle we're calling a negative because it's below the curve. So big area, this area here, minus this area here, and we don't need to simplify it. Could you simplify? That's 10, that's 1, 10 minus 1 is 9, yes, but I got all the points I'm going to get. No reason to simplify. All right, let's go look at part B. All right, part B says on what intervals is the graph increasing and concave down. If you just looked at the video before this one, we did the same thing. Increasing and concave down is, we need a sign chart of G, because it's about G, so we need a sign chart of G prime and G double prime. So we're going to make a sign chart of G prime. It's from -5 to 4. And remember what goes on this sign chart? Zeros. This is the graph of G prime. I know they said F, but we learned better that it's not just called F, it's called G prime. So we're going to call this G prime, and G prime is 0 at -3 and at 2. So at -3 and at 2. And now we're going to look at where it's positive and negative. Positive values, and negative values. So my sign chart goes positive, positive, and negative. Okay. That's the sign chart of G prime. And now we're going to look at the slopes of G prime to make a sign chart of its derivative, G double prime x. Okay. G double prime x, again, we're looking at slopes. Slopes were decreasing until I hit -3. And then my slopes were increasing until 0. And again, why am I looking at slopes? This is G prime. We want a sign chart of G double prime. G prime to G double prime, we're talking about derivative. The derivative of G prime is G double prime. So to learn about someone's derivative, we use slopes. So we're looking at the slopes. So all the way to 0, we have positive slopes. And then we have negative slopes the rest of the way. Okay, so my slopes were negative, positive, negative. All right, now in this problem, they want it to be increasing and concave down. Increasing means G prime x is positive. Concave down means G double prime x is negative. So we're looking for where this one's positive and this one's negative. And we notice that occurs here. And it occurs right in there. Okay, so part B, oops, the whole time I forgot to put a B there. All right, well anyways, for part B, we will say it's increasing and concave down on the interval -5 to -3. That's a negative there, it's hard to see. -5 to -3. And from 0 to 2. Because G prime x is positive and G double prime x is negative. Now remember, if I say G prime x and G double prime x, if I don't have these sign charts, they seriously aren't giving me points for the justification. I've called this graph G prime. Notice, I call this G prime, but they're not going to be able to see, you're not going to be recopying stuff down on your AP exam this year because they don't give you your work. So you're going to have to label these. If you don't label these, then they're not going to be able to know that you knew what you were doing. But anyways, this is the answer and this is the reason. If you didn't want to talk about G prime and G double prime, you could just say because F, remember this could also be called F. This is also called F. So you could say because F is positive and F prime is negative. Okay. That's it for part B, and now let's go look at part C. All right, part C. They want H prime 3. Wow, this just seems so much like the previous question. Okay, so they start by telling me H of x is G of x over 5x. I don't know what happened there. And they want to know what is H prime 3. Now folks, before you can find H prime 3, you've got to find H prime x. So let's put an x there. And you cannot find H prime x, the derivative, unless you do the quotient rule. So, quotient rule, low. D high, the derivative of g of x is g prime x, minus high. D low, the derivative of 5x is 5, all over low. Now you could have made that 25x squared, but I'm just going to write it like this. And now we're going to replace everything with a 3. So 5, 3, g prime 3, g of 3. Okay, so to answer this question, we only need to find two things. What is g prime 3 and what is g of 3? So we have 5 times 3 times, and we need g prime 3. Now folks, what graph is this? This is the graph of g prime x. So g prime 3 is literally just the ordered pair there. G prime 3, since this is the graph of g prime x, g prime 3 is the ordered pair. This is 3 comma negative 2. We simply want the y-coordinate since this is the graph of g prime. So that y-coordinate is a negative 2. Okay, so let's look at what we have. So we have this times this times this, and now we need minus g of 3 times 5 over 5 times 3 squared. Now how am I going to find g of 3? Well, good news, we did this in part A. Now you can take the whole part of part A, those two triangles we had, the 1/2 5 times 4 minus 1/2 2 times 1. You can take all that from part A and just put it right there. Or you could simplify it. Part A simplified to 10 minus 1, which was 9. And we're done. Again, I did quotient rule. I replaced every x with a 3, and I found these two values. G prime 3, since this was the graph of g prime x, g prime 3 was just the ordered pair, negative 2. And then g of 3 was our answer from part A. And that's our answer. Do we need to simplify this? No. Alright, I was just making sure that was all correct, and it is. And now we can go to part D. I hope if you're doing these in order, and this is your third one of the day, I hope they're starting to feel a little bit easier, just simply because we've done so many of these. And they start to repeat the types of questions. All right, let's look at part D. Part D, they say p of x is f of x squared minus x, and they want the slope of the tangent line when x is 1. Okay. Well, the slope of the tangent line means you need a point, so we need to know what p of 1 equals, and a slope. What does p prime negative 1 equals? All right, so let's go ahead and start with finding the point. What is p of 1? Well, p of 1 is f of, and we're going to replace the x's with 1s, and we get p of 1 is equal to f of 0. 1 minus 1 is 0. And what is f of 0? Well, since this is also called the graph of f, f of 0 is simply that ordered pair there. 0, comma 4. So that is simply a 4. So p of 1 is 4. All right, now we need p prime negative 1. And to get p prime, we need to take the derivative. All right, so what is the derivative of p of x? It's p prime x. And over here, this is the good old FU problem. What's the derivative of FU? The derivative of FU is f prime u times chain. And the chain, the derivative of all this is 2x minus 1. And again, we now need to plug in negative 1. So I'm going to put a negative 1 in here, this negative 1 squared. Oh, was I supposed to use a negative 1 before? Uh-oh. Oh, well, anyways, forget this first part. It could have even been wrong. I didn't notice it was a negative 1. I think I plugged a 1 in there, but you don't even need it. All they wanted was the slope of the tangent line. This is all they want. Wow, I'm so sorry. Well, anyways, this is still the derivative. I'm plugging in negative 1. I do not know why I was plugging in the wrong thing. So that's a negative 1. That's a negative 1. That's a negative 1. Okay, so we get f prime. This is 1 plus 1, which is 2. And then over here, this is negative 2 minus 1, which is negative 3. So we need to know what is f prime 2. Well, if this is the graph of f, this is the graph of f. F prime means its slope. So what is the slope at 2? Well, if you want to know the slope at 2, you need to know the slope of this line. And you can see this line goes down 4 over 2. Down 4 over 2 means also down 2 over 1. So it's 4 over 2 or 2 over 1. So the slope of this line, the slope, it's a negative slope going down. So the slope is negative 2. So this is negative 2 times, and then here we have our chain of -3. And you don't have to simplify it, but if you do, you get the answer of 6. And that's what they need. And remember, they're going to be checking your work. So make sure you're showing your work. Again, the derivative of fu is f prime u times chain. And then we plug in the values and look up the answers. All right, thank you so much. Bye.